Turns to another big story today amid growing accusations that Russians tried to interfere in the U.S. election. CIA Director John Brennan sparked anger on Capitol Hill by apparently declining to brief the House Intelligence Committee on this matter. Critics say this is just further evidence that there are too many politics at play and point to the administration and evidence like this over the last 8 years.
We want to reset our relationship.
Let's do it together.
So we will do it together, okay?
This is my last election, please. Yeah. And after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. And I transmit this information to Vladimir.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat. Because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because, the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
Let's bring in Claudia Rosett, a foreign policy fellow at the Women's Independent Forum. She wrote a piece that said if Russia influenced the election, Obama, not Trump, let it happen. And Claudia, you're joining us via Skype. A snowstorm shut down some of the travel, but the picture is great, and we appreciate the time today. Just looking at some of the sound that we just played for our viewers, this is what you were really zeroing in on in your piece, which you say is really the sudden outrage by this administration about the Russians. Talk to us a little bit more about what you're seeing as this story progresses.
Well, let's start with a question. If the Russians are to blame, if President Obama and his intelligence community, or parts of it, apparently they're arguing in there, really believe it was the Russians, then why isn't he punishing Russians? Because right now, even though we read in the press reports that they say they've identified some unidentified individuals, there's been no visible move to do anything against Russia. This entire thing has only seemed aimed at damaging President-elect Donald Trump and the Republicans. So what's that about?
And what do you think the implication is then for the incoming Trump administration? What do you think is the effect?
Well, it looks very much, look, if the Russians were running what the White House has been doing, we call it disinformation designed to taint and smear a president-elect of the United States. That seems to be where this is going. But who is actually, if indeed the Russians hacked into the U.S. election in some major way, and we haven't seen any of the evidence on which this whole thing is based, it's all been leaked, the innuendo, anonymous sources, then who is actually responsible for protecting the United States right now? Whose job was it to deter Russian aggression, to defend against Kremlin plots? That was the job not of Trump or Hillary, for that matter, but of President Obama. It's the sitting president. And what you just showed in those clips is he has groveled before Russia for years. And now suddenly, in the final moments, just before leaving, he's presenting us with Russia as the unpunished arch-villain of a drama that's tainting the guy he didn't think was going to win and didn't want to win. This is, Jenna, this whole thing is something out of a Graham Greene novel. Well, it shouldn't be happening in American politics.
It's interesting when you put it that way because, quite frankly, we haven't had that perspective as often. It's all been about the campaign and what happened through the campaign and not really stepping back for a bigger picture in all of this.
What could Donald Trump have done? Hack and release his own emails? I mean, look, his Twitter feed was pretty much putting everything out there. It's something where it wasn't the job. Yes, people should protect themselves against hacking as best they can. But the job of defending the integrity of the American election, as long as the candidates are fundamentally running in good faith, that's the president and his administration. He's got a multi-billion-dollar massive bureaucracy to do this. And right now, what seems to be happening is these leaks keep coming out from anonymous CIA officials. The president is saying there must be an investigation before he leaves office. But why before he leaves office?
And that's an important point. I want to just underscore that because we don't have the evidence yet. We don't have evidence of retaliation from this administration to Russia. In fact, we don't even know, even the members of Congress that are our representatives that are allowed to see classified information are not getting the supposed classified information that points back to the Russians. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And so, Claudia, let's just end on this final point, which is we are going to have a new administration. So what can we learn from the last 8 years to make sure that the Russians, if they are indeed acting badly and misbehaving, that they stop it?
You can learn that it would be a good idea for the American president to stand up to dictators and thugs such as Vladimir Putin and make it clear to them early in an administration and often, not erase red lines, not be flexible, but make it clear that you do not push the United States around. You don't do things that America doesn't like. That's what can be done.
That really is a sobering thought and some interesting advice that we'll see if it is put into practice. Claudia, great to have you in the program. It was a terrific piece, and we look forward to having you back as always. Thank you.